Now, um, how many missions have you been on?
Well, it depends.
Didn't the church?
Depends a little bit on Lucille. Oh, I'm sorry. Hello. Yes. I beg pardon? Who's speaking? Hello. Let me go
Hello?
outside.
I can't. I'm not turning it off.
It's all right. That's not worry about it. Have you moved the?
I haven't done anything. I think.
Okay. All right.
Didn't the church news say 7 missions?
I think we can. Yeah, I think 7 is on pretty solid ground. But you see, here's one thing that happened. We filled out the necessary forms, did all the usual things to serve a mission, and went to Spain as temple missionaries. We were there for the dedication of the temple, and then labored there for 4 months. Then the temple closed for a 2-week period, and we decided we'd take a little tour of mostly southern Spain. Rented a car. That ear's gone dead. We rented a car, and one night we stayed at special hotels. Spain they've selected some castles and old monasteries that were historic. Some of them are very unique in terms of their architecture and so forth. They renovated them and made first-class hotels out of them.
How much do they cost you?
About the same as a first-class hotel, a little less. And we were staying at those kinds of places. And we were at one of those in a dining room. The spirit, I'm convinced this is true. It sounds, depending on your point of view, it sounds a little odd, but I knew we should have a cell phone with us on that trip. And you buy a cell phone with it, and then buy a certain number of minutes of call, and you get the cell phone and the phone number at the same time. We were in the dining room at this place and got a call from Salt Lake City, and they asked us to go to Ecuador. We didn't know why, except they asked us to. When we got there, a day or two, I got a call from President Faust telling me that I was to be first counselor of the presidency. And then when he and President Hinckley came down, we were set apart in the presidency. We were there then for 10 months, and we got a call from President Hinckley asking us to go to Montreal. Now, was that still just one mission? Was it 2 missions? Or was it 3 missions? If it's 3, then the first one was for 4 months, the second one was for 10 months, and the third one was for 2.5 years. So, if you add it up that way, it comes out to 8. And that's the way Lucille prefers, and I have no trouble with that.
Now, how have you? It has meant you've missed a lot with your family. How have you been able to reconcile that
Well, there's
yourselves?
some, quite interestingly, as in so many things in life, there tends to be a balancing aspect. For instance, after we went down to Zaire, our daughter Elise got married. I think it was during that period of time. Let's see. see, well, that's not terribly important. The fact is that she got married, and we were, of course, serving as mission president. No question about our being there for her wedding. But I talked to Mac and asked him to be my proxy. But to do that, of course, and he had to go to the temple and get his own endowment. So he did it. He did it. And of course, all members of my family are special to my children. My children are just in love with my brothers and sisters, all of them. They're struck by the fact that even like Mary Louise, who's now in her 80s, you meet her, you would never think of her as being an 80-year-old woman. She just simply is not. And the members of our family have always been like that. To think of a Lloyd or a Mac or one of us as a daughter and old man just does not fit. You know? But Mac, of course, who's been a favorite of everybody, is also a favorite among our kids. And that's one of the reasons. So it hasn't all been negative. We've missed out on the birth of grandchildren and so on. But one other plus, when President Mawson, when we were in Ivory Coast, we were supposed to be there for a year and a half. We'd been there a year. And I got a call from I can never remember his name. Used to be a professor at the University of Utah. I remember former the 12 had cancer once.
Yes. Starts with an N. Yes.
Maxwell called to us in Abidjan asking would we react favorably to a call to go down to Zaire as mission president. Then, and I said, yeah, that's always been our response, yes. And when Monson then called to actually extend the call, I said I wanted to make a deal with him. I said, our daughter is in Spain on a mission. If we go to Zaire as mission president, at the end of her mission, she'll go home to her empty.
Oh, yes. Nobody'd be there to greet her.
So I said, the deal I'll make with you is we'll accept if you make an arrangement so that our daughter can go home via the Congo. No, via the Ivory Coast. Via the Ivory Coast. So that we can see her before she goes home. Something's fishy. No, I think that's essentially the right thing. The odd thing about this is at the end of her mission, she did come down. She spent about 10 days with us, I think. Had a wonderful time because she was able to participate in district conference. She went teaching with us. She critiqued our technique and our approach.
Sure.
And she gave a talk at district conference, but she spoke Spanish. And one of the men who was in the presidency had joined the church in Spain, so spoke Spanish. So she spoke in Spanish. He translated from Spanish into French. But the fun thing was that when it was time for her to go home, it was time for us also to go back to Salt Lake City to get ready to be the mission president in the Congo. So we flew back on the same plane.
Well, that was a bonus.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. We had, excuse me, but let me tell you one other thing. It's one of those odd experiences. You don't know whether to relate something spiritual to it or not. people flying out of the U.S., as you well know that the American Airlines, U.S. carriers, don't pay much attention to the weight of their luggage. There's no practical limit. You take just about anything you want to.
Yes.
But the minute you get on the continent, to Europe, then you have to watch out. And as she left Madrid to come to us, I'm not sure what came into play that made it possible for her to get out of Madrid without paying overweight on her luggage. But when we got ready to leave from Abidjan with the same luggage, as the man at the counter was weighing her luggage, it was clear that it was well over. And he was talking about, well, this is clearly overweight and you're going to have to pay overweight penalty. My heart just sunk because it wasn't at all certain we had money necessary to pay something. And at that moment, their computer went down. And so he was unable to charge us because he had no way of telling us what it had to be. So we went through scot-free.
That's real providence.
That makes me think of another story, which is worth telling you, just for fun. Lucille and I went to Bombay. I had to go there on business for Boeing. I've been to India more than once, so there's a tendency to confuse things a little bit. The important thing is that all flights out of Europe to India arrive in the middle of the night. It's a terrible arrangement. So here we are about 12:30 at night or 1 o'clock in the morning. We just come off a big jet, and the baggage is coming off of one of these belts and piling up on the floor, going end over end. And the customs agents are going through bags with a fine-tooth comb. It was obvious that this was going to take a long time. We have this feeling that no matter which line we get in, it's always the slowest line.
That's right.
We had an experience that was kind of the opposite of that. Because we got behind a young woman. It looked like she was in her 20s or perhaps early 30s. And she was a knockout. And from what she said during the time we could overhear her conversation, she was a resident. She was not an Indian, she was European. But she was a resident of India and she was returning. And the customs agent that dealt with our line was a young man. And she turned on the charm, and we have to stop because that's running out. But I'll finish, maybe it'll still be there. She turned on the charm on this young man, and he was so blown away by this young woman, when it came our turn to go through, we just sailed right through. I think he just stamped and passed us by. That was a great experience. It was fun. Let me turn that off.
I think that this is going to be a sterling thing. I'm really pleased with what you've done today.